All right, thank you for joining us today for our Power BI Dashboards webinar. I'm excited to introduce our presenter, Miss Julia Bowe. She's been with us for almost 3 years, and we are so glad to have her on our team. So take it away, Julia.
Sounds good. So we're going to be starting in Power BI. This is a blank report, and I wanted to use BC today as a representation of data. But when I looked at the BC API, it just found like it had some missing data or data that I wanted to show, but it wasn't there. So using the technology based off of Unlocked ER, which is a product of ours at TruNorth, to export the BC database, and which you can do, I believe, up to 10 times a month. If you are more interested in Unlocked ER after this, please reach out to this client success manager of yours, and they will get that talk with you or have that conversation with you. But that allowed us to have an Azure SQL Server instance, and which allows access to the full database and has even more options of what to use. So I'm going to first start off with the import of data from SQL Server. And then you do the server and database, which I already have here off to my other screen. So just give me 1 second to type that in. And then I'm going to click OK. And then it would also prompt you to go through the login process. Now, because I've already done that login process, it's not going to prompt me. It's just going to pop up the screen with all of the options of the tables you can use. Now, some of these tables, honestly, most of these tables do not have the most kindest of names in the aspect of when it comes to reading the data and understanding the data. So one of the huge processes that we will be doing is a part of the transform data is making that name a little bit easier for everyone to understand at the end report. So I have some tables that I'm going to be pulling from. So we're going to be pulling the sales invoice line, specifically the line and the header as well. But as you can see, we kind of have these two split up. We have this like initial setup, and then we have this invoice line up here. This one is specifically a view, which is created inside of SQL, which is great for SQL, and you can create your own views and then use that in here. I decided not to go with that route, but you can go that route if you would like. So I'm going to grab the invoice line, and then you can see we have two options here, the invoice line and the invoice line with the EXT on the end. I have kind of realized that Microsoft likes to do that specifically with Shopify and other things like that they are adding on. So these are just extra lines that I didn't feel like I needed in this specific report, but could be used in another report. So I'm going to grab the invoice line. I'm also going to grab the invoice header. And it's the same exact thing with the header. You see the non-extended and then the extended as well. And then I'm going to grab one more as well, which is the invoice entity aggregate. The invoice entity aggregate is actually that is the wrong, they have the demo user here. So each company has its own set of tables. So I'm specifically looking at the Kronos companies inside of this BC instance. So I'm going to find the sales entity aggregate for Kronos, and I'm going to select that as well, which is Microsoft's way of inside of the database to do, it has a lot of the same amount of tables. It has a couple or columns that are not in there, which we will talk about in a little bit. But it has this amount table, which the invoice header does not. So we're going to do those ones. And then we are also going to do the customer, since I want to know more about the customer and do some information on the customer. So I'm going to find the customer, which is right there. And then I'm going to do the payment terms. We have GP, we have O365. We are looking for just plain payment terms in this instance. And then we're going to do the item so we can link it up towards the invoice line and do some analysis on that item specifically. So we're going to look for Kronos. These are the views that we talked about. So I'm going to scroll down to do the tables. We can see we have Chronos and we have item. And we're just looking for item. Oh, that's email item. I happen to know it's towards the end, and it's going to be this one right here. Oh, this is the extended one. I do not want the extended one. I'm going to grab the non-extended version. And then I'm going to do payment terms, which let's see if I can. And sometimes with live demos, things like to take some time, which is totally fine. We all get it. We all need a break sometimes. And with payment terms, we have Chronos GP. And I think I already clicked this one. Yep, I did. Okay. And we're going to go to tax area. We have Chronos tax area. And then the last one I'm going to grab is employee, since I would like to do some analysis on employee, on what they have specifically, or who is the salesperson related to the selling of that invoice. So now we're going to click transform data. You can click load, but I know that I'm going to want to do transformations such as the title names and some other things. So I'm just going to go straight into transform data, and that's going to bring me into Power Query automatically. Now inside of Power Query, we have these tables like that we pulled in. So first thing I'm going to start out with, because I know this is going to be something I'm going to do, and it's going to make my life easier, at least for the beginning, is I'm going to automatically just change all of these names to just be the title of the name and not include that whole long GUID and then the whole long Chronos part as well. So I'm going to go ahead and change all of those. And I'm going to leave this as entity aggregate, since it is a little bit of we want to distinguish between the two names. And for this one, I'm actually just going to make this invoice, not header, because this is what I'm going to eventually pull into the actual, into more of the what I want to see at the end result. I don't need to see the header name, since that doesn't have much of an impact on what people see, since I'm going to be doing it on the back end of what that looks like. Eventually, we'll be combining these two tables together or merging them together, so then they're kind of they're all in one, and you don't have to worry about the two separately. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through that process of merging them together. So we have the sales invoice and we have the sales invoice aggregate. So I'm going to do we're going to do merge queries. We're going to do merge queries as not as new. I just want to leave them as sales invoice. So it's going to say select a table and match the matching columns to create a merge table. So I'm going to do sales invoice entity aggregate. And I'm going to do the number and the number. And if you look down here, this one is specifically is going to do a left outer join. You can kind of go through each different options. And as you can see down here, it will match like 218 of 224. I want to stick with that left outer join. And on it, that's something that like I found interesting while looking at this data was, okay, why are only 200 or why are 6 rows not included in the sales entity aggregate? So it's a good way to like indicate when you're doing this of analysis of that data to go, oh, hey, maybe we should go look back at that data and see why there's that discrepancy. But I'm going to stick with a left outer join. And that is going to merge my two together. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect these columns. We're going to click that little button right there, unselect these columns. And then I'm going to bring over the amount and the, I think it's like tax. Oh, subtotal amount, we'll do those two. And then the other thing I don't, because I already have that combined data into here, I'm actually going to or disable the load from loading into the final result of what you see. It'll still bring in that data, and you'll still be able to like do analysis on that data due to the combined merging, and it will still go through the process of this. So when I refresh the data, it will still like process it, but it's not going to load it in the end. So I'm going to enable the load, and you see it kind of grayed out a little bit if you look at the other ones. But so that's the first thing I'm going to do. So now we have that combined. So then at the invoice at the end, we have those amounts. Now I don't really love these names, so I'm going to change these names as well. I'm just going to change it to invoice or sales invoice amount. And then we'll do the same thing with the subtotal. Sales invoice subtotal amount. Another thing, if you notice, is data types are, Power BI tries really hard to do the data types. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it does not. This one, it does not have the the correct, as you can see here, there is no comma after the 1 in between that 1,000. So we are going to do the fixed decimal type to be able, or fixed decimal amount to make sure that shows up as a pricing amount instead of or we're going to as a currency amount instead of just a normal number. So that's the two things we're going to do there. And then if you, to reduce the number of the amount of data that's coming in, we could do removing of columns and remove columns that are needed. For this scenario, I'm not going to do that, but if you want to reduce the amount you're bringing over, you can do that, and it's a really great way to reduce your the data you're loading in. So I'm going to then go to customer. I'm liking all the information I see here. Payment term codes is good. Nothing I really want to change here. It's just good information. So one thing under employee, if we go look at employee, we see that we have a first name and a last name. And if we scroll to the right, we don't really have a row or a column with the combined first and last name. And I know that can be important for people, because if you have the same person who has if you have 4 people named Marty in your company, you might want to know, oh, hey, it's Marty Horst, not Marty Falls. So I'm going to create a custom column. And I'm going to name this full name. And I'm going to do first name, and we'll do last name. Now, as you see, we'll do this. What will happen is it's going to put it at the end, and it has an error, which is totally fine, which is what is expected. So we go to add to custom. We're going to go pop up. We have no indication here. It doesn't quite fully understand the so we're going to add an ampersand. And then if we add the ampersand, there is going to be no space in between it. It is literally just going to combine first name, second, or first name, last name. So I'm also going to add a space as well. And then we have no syntax error or errors. So I'm going to click OK. And we should see that full name populate as expected with a space in between the first and last name. So that I'm going to also change this to add full name. And then I don't personally love that the column's all the way over here, so I'm going to change where the column is located. And I'm just going to manually do that by bringing it over here. You see there's a lot of columns that we don't need. So in theory, I could go through all of these and remove them. I'm not going to do that for this specific example, but it is definitely a really good way to clean up your data and to make sure there's not data that is unneeded. So I'm going to put it right after their last name. So we have first name, middle name, last name, and then their full name. And then so we're going to actually create our own custom call or custom table. And the custom table we are going to create is a date table. Because if we look at the sales invoice table that we looked at earlier, we have our posting date, our shipment date, and our order date, and our due date, and a payment discount date. We have a lot of different dates. So we want to make sure that there's kind of one table of dates so it doesn't get confusing to users. And we'll kind of, in our shortly, we'll relate to relationships, and you can decide where you want that relationship to be. But for now, we're going to start with creating that date table to kind of make sure that's one and the same. While I'm here, I'm also going to change all of these to dates instead of date and times, because as you can see and as you look down, they're all midnight or 12 a.m. So I'm just going to make it a date instead of the date time, since I don't need that time. Oh, I clicked date time. And then I'll leave payment discount date alone, since we're not really going to be using that in our model in our model anyway. So then I'm going to come down here and we're going to do a new source, and we're going to do blank query. Now, this is going to look really weird. I promise you it's going to look weird, but it's going to be okay. We will get to a table from there. So we're going to remove these. And so this is going to, let's see if we can. Give me 1 second. I have a OneNote I actually have of information of stuff like that. So it's a really good way to, so as you can see, this is, let's see, remove. So I want from 2018 to 2020 or 2018, the whole year. But I know that's just from my actual copying of my formula that I have. That is not the actual correct date information I want. So first step that we are going to do is we're going to go look at our sales invoice line or sales invoice, and we're going to go to the date that we care about. So for this one, I'm going to care about the posting date, since the shipment date ultimately doesn't have, we're looking at the invoice, and so I care about the posting date. So as we look at the posting date, we can see sort ascending. And you can see that we have beginning dates in 2023. And then if we do sort descending, we have the end dates of 2025. So that's going to be my date range, is beginning of 2023 to the end of 2025, because I want it to be more specifically to my data and to what I want. So I'm going to do 2023, the first of the month, or the 1st of January to the end of the year of 2025. And let's see here. And it is not working as expected, so we're going to work through that together. New source, blank query. I'm going to copy that formula in, put an equal sign, 2023. Nope, gotta type the dates correctly. Oh, we have an extra column, which is okay. Just remove that extra column. And it is not liking my syntax, which is okay. I see that I have a column or a squiggly bracket here. So I'm going to add a squiggly bracket at the front. And let's see, and this is what I was expecting to see. But these lists, this is just a list view, so I'm actually going to turn it into a table. And it's going to, yep, that is correct, since I don't really have much data in there. There is no delimiters and there is no extra columns. So we're going to do OK. And still, this is still showing as 44927. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really understand or know what that means. So I'm going to go and change that to a date. And as you can see, that automatically changes it to a date. And if we scroll all the way down, you will see we have 2024 and to the end of 2025 if we keep scrolling. So automatically creates those dates. I'm going to change this column name to date. And so we have our date table, or the beginnings of a date table, I should say. But this is not all I want to know. I want to know about the month. Maybe I want to know about the day of the year or the day of the week it's on. Could be lots of other data informations you want to know, such as the week number, all that information. So we're going to add a custom column. And we're going to do this is going to be called a month number. And we're going to add a date/month, date.month. Oh, and you can see it did not take that's okay. And then we're going to do the parentheses, and inside the parentheses, we're going to put that original date column. And then we're going to do OK. And it's going to get that month number. So sometimes maybe you want to do the month name instead. So I'm going to do another custom column, and I'm going to do date-month name right there. I'm going to change the column name to month name. And then we're going to do the same kind of thing with the parentheses and the date. You could use the month number. I like to stick with the date since that is our original data source or original data. As you can see, it said January, and then as soon as it switches to February, it goes to February. And then we're going to add one more. So we can do some analysis on the actual day of the year or the day of the week, not just the month. So we're going to add month or week day name. And we're going to do a custom column equaling date/day of week name. Oh. And we're going to do the same thing with the columns, and we're going to do the date as well. So it's going to add that column. So we know that on 1/4/2023, it was a Wednesday. So then that's kind of my beginnings of the data transformation. Granted, there's way more that you can do. For example, maybe for the description, you don't want it to say Amsterdam lamp in all caps. So we can transform. Oh, actually, we're just going to the home button. And we're going to change this one to specifically where the data, the text itself is not all in like capital letters. So we're going to do format, and we're going to do capitalize each letter. And that is going to change that from all capitalizations to a smaller case red swivel lamp. Just to make it easier to see, and maybe you don't like things screaming at you. I know sometimes I don't, or in capitals you might feel that way. So I know I like to make things a little bit easier for people. And then I'm going to do look in tax area, and I think it's the same exact way with the description and tax area. So I'm going to do the same thing over there. Format, capitalize each letter. So then that is what we're going to start off with. There's typically, once I start like going into the actual like modeling and then into the actual like designing of the report, I often find other things that I'm like, oh, well, it would look better if it looked like that. So I kind of often end up coming back here pretty regularly just to make sure I get it to look how I want it to look. But we'll start with this. So we're going to do apply and close. And this might take debatably the longest, depending on the amount of data you have. But it's going to evaluate it, and then it's going to add that data into your report as well. So we'll see. I haven't had this take too long with this data set since this is a pretty small data source. And for the specific data source, actually, we'll go take a look at that. We're actually looking at this specific one right here inside of BC. So as you will see, we have our customer names, we have our customer numbers, These are invoices actually that we are currently looking at, and then we have sales orders. We're not looking at the sales orders today, but you could also do sales orders as well. So we're going to wait for this to connect to the Azure SQL Server, and it's going to take some time depending, and we'll kind of go from there. So Power BI does have a really great feature where it does detect relationships automatically. Sometimes this is not the most, sometimes it does really, really well with this. Sometimes it doesn't. With this one, it did not, which is totally fine. Just means we have to create it manually, which is our first step and the most important step inside of or the second most important step besides transform data. Because if I go here right now and I click on employee, that full name thing that we created right there, we have that full name. And then if I come to invoice and I look at and we called that invoice amount. So let's go down to, just do a search, called invoice. I think we actually called it sales invoice amount, but we'll look up amount. And we have that sales invoice amount right there. And as you can see, this right here is showing that Esther, or Jim, all of them have that same amount. And we know that is not correct because our total is that, which is a really good indicator of a relationship issue or a relationship concern. So we are going to go look at our model. As you can see, that is correct. So we're going to create a star schema. So a star schema has kind of one major thing in the middle and then lots of different points reaching out to it. So I'm going to start with my sales invoice, and I'm going to start with the date. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You can drag and drop the date over here. So I'm going to look at the posted invoice date, which I'm at the posting or the posted date. And so there's kind of a couple ways you can do this. You can drag and drop, and then it will pop it up right there. And we have that date to sales invoice date, and it's a one-to-many, and we're going to save. I'm going to do the same kind of concept for all of the relationships. Another way I like to do them is I actually like to come up here. So I like to do the sales invoice to the customer. And as you can see, the system created, is there one that their system created by? Is there one they want to connect? But we know that is not correct. So we are going to find the correct one. For this one, I'm going to specifically care about the bill to customer because I am looking at invoices. I'm looking at the bill to customer. I don't really, not that I don't care about the not bill to customer, but because I'm looking at invoices, I know that's what's important. So I'm going to find the customer number, which is right there. And then it's going to do a many-to-one relationship automatically. And then we're going to do one for employee as well. So we're going to do the same kind of concept, sales invoice to employee. And it wants to do that same thing, but again, we know that is not correct. So for this one, I actually know for sales invoice, it is a customer or employee code, I believe it's called. I know it's, I think I missed it actually. Yeah, pretty sure it starts with an E. It's the employee code, I believe, is the thing where you're looking for. So let's see, we can go back and find this is the struggle with using this form or this way. Sometimes it gets a little complicated with finding the right thing to use, and sometimes it can be a little complicated. But I like that it shows a couple examples versus the other way you just see the column name versus it showing a couple examples. So then I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I know, okay, so let's see if we can find this. Okay. Salesperson code. It was with an S, never mind. So we have salesperson code, which does not match our full name, which is totally fine, because then we're going to find their equivalent of that as well. So then we have their number right here. So then it's going to automatically create that cardinality and then do that cross filter direction as well. Then we're going to do sales, or we're going to do payment terms actually. So payment terms, I happen to know that I think we're going to care about the description. So if we go look at this one right here, we're going to look at payment terms code, and I think it's actually the code we're going to care about, not the description. So we're going to do those two, and it will pop up. And so then we're going to do save, because it automatically has those two selected. And I guess the other advantage of doing it this way is you can see them here as well. So we're going to save. It kind of gives you the same idea, just two different ways of doing it. For tax area, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have tax area code. And if we scroll down, we're going to find tax area code. We're going to bring that to tax area code. And we know here we have Atlanta, Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia, or that's not necessarily saying that's the correct information, but we know that we're looking at the same data or the same base data. Okay, so we have sales invoice line and sales invoice. So I'm going to, sales invoice line, I believe it is the number that we're going to look at, because the number is not the line number, the actual number, which is the document number or the number of the sales invoice. So we're going to find number on here as well. And right there. So we're going to bring this one over to here, and it's going to pop up right there. So we're going to do that mark. It's going to do many to one and a single. So that is correct. We're going to save that. Now, this is the one where it gets a little, it's not outside of the star schema. It's actually, I believe it's called a star schema with a leg. I prefer to call it more of a C star, but maybe that's just me. But so we have sales invoice line and we have item, but we know the sales invoice line is related to the sales invoice, but the item is not really directly related to the sales invoice. It is actually more directly related to the sales invoice line. So we are going to start with that invoice. We're going to start with that item, and we're going to look for that number, and then same with the, we're going to look for that, the same relationship or the same, what combines them together and what allows them to use that relationship. Since sometimes maybe you want to look at since sales invoice line, maybe it has other information, such as if you want to put like, oh, thank you for ordering with us. Okay, but that's not an item. So it's just like a line on the invoice, which is great, but I don't need to, maybe I don't need to track that in the aspect of items, or maybe I don't want to know about that indirect cost. And maybe there's other things that I do want to know about when it comes to items. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And we're going to do sales invoice line to item. And this one is going to be to the number. And we are going to choose this is the number of the, this is actually referencing that sales invoice or that item number. So then we're going to find the item number as well, which is going to be it's under I believe. Item discount, item category. We could look at item category, but we want to make sure there's data in there and there's that connection between the two. So we're going to look at okay, item category, item reference. I was expecting it to be here. Line discount, line number, and it's right there. So we're going to do save. And that is going to create that relationship between the two. So I can do analysis between all three of them together instead of it being two very separate things. So as we can see, we have the model here. And if we go back to that original thing, we can see right here that only, in fact, Jim Olive is the one who has done all of the sales on this specific section or specific production environment that we are looking at. So now only says Jim Oliver as having that amount, and we don't even see the other people. I don't even remember their names, so we don't even see them now. So now we are going to begin our data report view and the reporting that we want to show for people. Now, I am a really big, I really care about the story that we are telling inside of a data or inside of a model. That I believe that is the power of Power BI, that it tells a story, and it can tell you a story of data and all of that. So for this specific storytelling, I'm going to really care about the invoice amount. I want to know about where that's coming from. I want to know about maybe who's buying what. Maybe I want to know about where they are located and like what area of our data is getting or is buying the most of our sales invoice amount. That's what I want to care about for this specific story. And also maybe I want to care about what customers are buying the most, all of that. So I'm going to start with pulling in a, actually I'm going to start with pulling in a sales invoice amount again. So sales invoice amount. And as you can, naturally, because we're talking about the sales invoice amount, that is going to be a big topic or a big number or a big option that we, or column that we select in our data here. So I have the sales invoice selected, and then maybe for the, actually I'm going to remove that. I want to know about where the customer is located. So I'm going to also select their, maybe I want to know their city. So I'm going to select the customer city. And we know by looking at this that Atlanta has a lot. But maybe I want to look at this more in a map view instead of more in a column view or in a table view. Maybe I want to look at it more like this. Let's see if I can, actually I think I wanted this one. I wanted this one. So this one, we have our location as a city, and then we have our bubble size as the sum of the invoice amount. So as you can see here up in Chicago, if we hover over it, we get the name and then we get the sum as well. Up in Chicago, we have a sum of the invoices is 58,000. And in Atlanta, we have a lot, 417,000. So naturally, the bubble size is going to be substantially bigger, which is just a really, and in this data, we really only have those three. So we don't, but if you had way more data, you could be able to see those in a more diverse way. So I'm going to, that's going to be my first little thing over here. So I'm going to put that over here actually. And then for this one, I'm actually going to remove it because that was just for an example to make sure that my data modeling was correct. But for the name of the customer, maybe we care about the name of the customer. And as you can see here, we have our the 5 names of our customer, but I want to be able to filter by them. I want to be able to select a datum corporation and have it show me that and stuff like, but maybe I don't really love this like view of it. So I'm going to change this to a slicer. And then I'm also going to come over here and I'm going to change this to a drop down instead of a vertical list, just to make it a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier. So then I can select a datum company. It's going to do that right there. The other thing is I'm going to change this right here instead of having this be name, because a lot of things are named name, but I want to change this name to make it a little bit more easier for people to understand what the name you are looking at. So I'm going to change this to customer name. And then we're going to do, and it's going to be loading that. So then we're going to have that over here kind of off to the side. Then another thing I'm going to add is maybe I also want to do the same thing with employee. Now I know for our data, we know that Jim Oliver is the only one who has any sales, which is fine, but we maybe for other data you want to know more. So we're going to change this also into a slicer, and we're going to do the same exact thing and make this a drop down. And again, full name, not really 100% clear if you're looking at the table itself and you're inside of the table, that makes sense. But when you're looking at outside of the table, maybe it doesn't make sense. So we're going to change this to, instead of full name, we're going to change this to employee name. And it's going to save that. And it's just for this specific visual. It does not change it for the actual, on the actual table. It just changes it to the visual. So we have a drop down of Esther and Jim, but like again, like I said, we know that Jim has the most, so we know this data isn't really going to change over here. Also, this data invoice amount isn't super telling of what Jim has done. So another thing we're going to add is a card. Let's see, a card right there. So I'm going to add a card for the sum of invoice amount, for the sales invoice amount. And then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And maybe I don't need that sum of sales invoice amount fully. Maybe I just want to name it invoice amount on this specific visual. So then as we click Alpine Ski House, we can see that they have done 102.93% or 93K for their sales. So the next thing I'm going to add is going to be related to the payment terms. So I'm going to add the description. Oh, that is under employee. Okay. So we have the description, and then we're going to add the invoice amount because I want to know, hey, how much of our invoice is going towards net 10 days, or how much of our invoice is current month. So then I'm going to come down to sales invoice. I'm going to do sum or sales amount, that same column that we have been looking at throughout the time. And it naturally does sum that. So for this data, we only have two payment terms. Again, that description is not the best if you're looking at it outside of it. So I'm going to change this to payment terms. So for this data, we only have 1 month, 2%, 8 days, and cash on delivery. That is our two most popular, or the two most, or the only actually only the two used payment terms on the data that we have. I'm going to change this to make it a little bit more not as table. Maybe I want to make it a little bit more quote unquote fun to see for people. Next thing I'm going to add is I want to do some dates. So we created that lovely date table, which gives us some really good advantage because it now gives us that date hierarchy, which really allows us to do some analysis on that specific date and allows us to dive in even more. So if we go down to that sales invoice amount again, and this looks a little, I don't know, weird, maybe not, maybe to you guys it doesn't, but to me it does. So I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to make it maybe I want to make it a sum by, or a little column or a little chart of a stacked bar chart to make sure it's easier for everyone to see. And then the beauty of it being a hierarchy is it really allows you to dive into each individual year, month, quarter, all of that. So if I want to look at specifically 2023, I can dive into 2023 and it's going to tell us, hey, for Q2, there was $46,000 in that. And specifically in April, 36,000. So we do a lot of sales for April or for this specific customer because we have that customer selected. If we unselect that customer, we still do a lot of sales in April of 2023. So maybe you could do some, that kind of leads me to think like, oh, can we do some analysis on, okay, 2024 in April of 2024. Let's go back out actually, because I think that's in Q2. We still did a lot of sales. Now, it's a lot less compared to Q1, but maybe not specifically to the, just because Q2 seemed to have 2 months missing. And then you could do the same thing for 2025. And it really allows you to dive in further, and it allows you to even take it one step further. So in April of 2023, okay, what day is there a specific day that we sold the most? Okay, I'm looking at this. It looks like we sold a lot on April 20th. Maybe we should do some specific marketing on April 20th. That just leads to some other questions and some other like analysis of data of what that looks like. So we're now going to back out fully. And this allows you to just really dive into that data and figure out what are we looking at, what is the advantages, allows you to really do some deep dive analysis on that data and what you are looking at. The next thing I'm going to do, so that provides us some really great information, but it doesn't really provide me the month, what month is the most, because like I said, you kind of have to dive into each year. So I'm going to do a additional one, but I'm going to go back to that date table we use, and I'm going to do the month name. And I'm going to switch it so it doesn't. So then we have right here. And as you can see here, March tends to be pretty popular. So maybe actually instead of April, maybe when you want to look at March. But maybe I want to do the specific data labels, because this February, March, April, and January look pretty close unless you specifically get that tooltip of looking over it. So I'm going to add a data table, and then I know right from looking at it that December is our most by like 13,000, and March is substantially, or is 8,000 more than February. So then we're going to come over here, and so we really like that month number or month invoice amount. I don't really love this name, so I'm actually also going to change this name of this visualization. We're going to come over here. We're going to go to general. I'm going to do title, and I'm just going to do sales invoice amount by month, or let's just do by month, because I know it's going to be the month name. So if I look specifically here, it allows you to really dive into that specifically. So if I want to look at Trey Research, okay, Trey Research does a lot in January. So maybe I want to provide specific marketing to them in January and February, because that's when they tend to do the most. Or maybe if I want to or kind of push my later months to have more sales, maybe I want to do some more in the fall months with them. Or exact questioning, you could ask yourself the same questions for the School of Fine Arts and really dive into each customer and allow you to do, okay, what's their invoice amount? What months are they buying? What months are they like purchasing? And what months should we be maybe increasing that marketing or increasing that research or that reaching out to the customer for that? So then we only have about 10 minutes left, so I'll try to not do too much more. So then I want to look at the item, specifically the item. I'm going to just do the description of the item. Description. And I'm going to go back to that lovely sales invoice amount. Oh, and we can tell right away that our data is not correct. So usually at this point, I would go back to the model and kind of figure out, okay, what is not correct in my model? What is the information that's not showing correct? Because you can't have all of them be the same amount and it be the total. But we don't really have enough time for that. So I'm actually just going to do a different visual. I want to do tax area. So in tax area, we have our description. So you can see here we have 4 tax areas, 2 in Atlanta area and then 2 outside. And then we're going to use that, but maybe I want to see what the payment terms are. Maybe, okay, so Miami, we can see that they have a lot of cash, maybe, and then maybe this tells me some good information, but doesn't really tell me like how much. It doesn't really tell me, as we can see here, Chicago does a lot of cash on delivery and net 14 days, but it doesn't tell me their amount. So maybe also I want to add in that sales amount, sales, and based on how many times I've typed this, you'd think I would know, but I apparently don't. It's fine. So then we have our sales invoice amount here. So then let's make this a little bit smaller. Or maybe for this one, I don't care about the description. So I'm actually just going to remove the description because I don't find it necessary here since we already have it over here on the payment terms. So we're going to move that first description. I want to change that other one to rename the field to tax area to make it a little bit easier for people to understand what that is. Because again, if you're looking at it in a table, it makes total sense. If you're looking outside of a table, it makes a little bit less sense. So we have, as you can see here, we have Atlanta taking up the majority of it, and then Miami, Florida taking up the last of it. Now we do have some blanks, which could mean lots of different things. It could mean maybe they don't have taxes there, or maybe we don't, the specific customer doesn't have taxes. It could be multiple different reasons. But again, that's a really good point of reference to go look at your data and be like, hey, this really allows you to see the data and analyze the data from there. But again, this just isn't a column or a little table view. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more showing and a little bit more of a visual instead of it just being a description or a area. So this one here, I don't really love this because it ultimately doesn't really show. It does show them being less and less, but I don't really need to know that Miami had substantially less than Atlanta, Georgia. I'm just wanting to know the invoice amount by each area. So I'm actually going to change this to a stacked bar chart column, but as you can see, this doesn't really provide the correct information. 1 second, I'm about to cough, so hold on. So I'm going to change this to a stacked column chart, which is the really kind of the same aspect over here. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. To allow to see that, okay, Atlanta, Georgia has quite a bit more than Miami. But I don't really love that I can't really see the amounts without clicking, without that tooltip. So I'm going to add that data table so I know off the bat how much more or how much that amount is. Another thing that I've really come to really like about the visual aspect of Power BI, if you want to get into visuals, there's a lot of really interesting research into visuals and our visuals in the aspect of coloring and the aspect of viewing visuals. And as you can see, their default is kind of this blue, which I don't really love. So I like to change that out of the bat actually, and I like to go and change that so it's going to make it a little bit different. So that's the heading, data format. We have the effects. I believe it is under, it's under one of these where it talks about the data color, or where it allows you to change that data color. Let's see which one it is. Is it? It's in one of these right here, columns right here. Under columns, we have that color. Maybe I want to do a dark blue instead of that light blue. Unfortunately, you cannot do if it's below 0.10, maybe I want to make it red. That's not quite a feature for in visuals yet. You can do that in more of a table view, more of that original table view that we were talking about. It's the conditional formatting of that coloring. You can do it here more. So maybe there's data where you specifically want to say hey, if this is under or under 100,000, maybe I want to specifically call it out. So maybe I would highlight it there. You can do that here, but you can't really do that in a visual like we had here. So maybe you, that's just in all considerations of a visual and what you want to see and what your end result is. But in this specific story of my data, I care about the invoice amount. I don't really need to see it meeting a specific goal, or maybe if that's what my end goal is and that's what my end user is looking for, maybe that's what I would go down. But with 5 minutes left, I'm actually just going to show you I took the same data, did a little bit more transformation, so I had a little bit more time than just an hour. And I'm actually going to show you what the end result was what I did. So here we have the payment method, which was cash and then waiting on payment. And then I'm actually also able to change it to just waiting on payment or just cash. So I know for waiting on payment, maybe I have a customer, Adam or A Datum Corporation. We are waiting on payment for $906,000. It just allows you to really like dive into that data of what you are specifically looking at and what you're specifically wanting to see. And you, as we can see here, we have revenue by year. And then I also did a item sold by year and quantity. So as I can, right here for this waiting on payment, we have the item of conference bundle 2-8 with a sum of 81 quantity sold, and then of $18,937. So it really allows you to dive into your data and to figure out, you know, what are the things that are anomalies or what are the things that maybe we should pay attention more. And then it really allows you to take that right next steps as a company to be able to make the right decisions with your data and to be able to make the good choices based off your current data. But with that, Cameron, am I handing it back to you or?
You are. Sorry, I was on mute.
Nope, all good. I figured you were, so all good.
If we have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. If not, and you think of something later, you can always email us at clientsuccess@TruNorthDynamics.com, or you can email your direct client success manager, and we can get the answers from Julia. And if with that, we don't have any questions, so I think we're okay.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.